Hello there everyone, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, Better Than Starting Manned. I'm here in the VAB with my latest ship design. I've spent the last hour or so off camera testing various designs based off of advice from the comments from the previous episode. And this is kind of the ship that I've come up with to get a 10-ton payload into low Kerbal orbit. It's got some ups and downs to the design. I really tried to get the 4-engine version of this to get as advised, or the 5-engine lower stage as advised by Mitko. It just falls short. I get to about a 10-kilometer periapsis every simulation I've tested. That's the best I could get without making any significant redesigns to my ship or even with adding extra fuel to the upper stages. So this is my next attempt. I've been fine-tuning this with the 7-engine lower booster stage and a 3-engine upper stage, and I think this one's going to work. So all we need to do before we do a launch is to check our contracts and see if there's anything else we can snag to throw a few extra dollars onto this thing. It's got a tiny bit of extra mass capacity to spare. So there's no reason why I couldn't grab a part testing. Medium payload, that's the thing I'm just doing. Escape trajectory, that's not going to be meaningful until I go to the moon. Separatron orbiting Kerbal, well, that's what we're about to do. So I might as well use these two. I know exactly how I'm going to use those too. Let's grab it. I mean, it's a whole 1,500, but hey, that offsets the cost of it just a little more. Get into the VAB, and what we will do to test the Separatron, we're going to put them right here, and we're going to rotate them like that, mirror it like that. And those are going to be used to separate the, to basically disengage us from the the payload. We'll use it to very rapidly thrust what's left of this ship backwards. Adds almost no mass. I think it's almost no mass, right? Yeah, almost no mass. Perfect. Okay. So this is the ship we're going to send, and we are going to do a weather. We're finally going to get this weather report done, and we're going to get a test contract done, and we're going to deliver Ionic Symphonic Protonics payload to orbit. So let's do this thing. So what I've found with this one is that it is just a little more powerful than I would like, but the 5-engine one is just a little less powerful than I need. So what I have to do with this one is I have to be very, very careful about terminal velocity, because it could easily exceed that terminal velocity. Now, in answer to Lyowen's question, this thing is just short of being able to use just these boosters to get off the pad. Like, it's really close. I'd say if these boosters had just a bit more thrust to them, we'd be good to go. But as it is, I need to have about 1/3 throttle on my liquid fuel engines for them to get off the pad. Anyways, here we go in 3, 2, 1. And away we go. So, we don't want to be going faster than 100 meters per second before 1,100 meters of elevation, and that is our first benchmark. So we need to be at 1,100 before we exceed 100 meters per second. I've got a cheat sheet right here. I may have mentioned it, but full throttle to the engines. There we go. No loss of speed if I was a little bit more on the ball. So 200 meters per second at 7,000 meters. And we're looking pretty good here. We'll just keep it at full throttle until further notice, but it's coming pretty quick where we're going to have to slow it down a little. At about 150 meters per second is where we need to actually start slowing it down. Actually, even just a little sooner. Because we don't want to hit that terminal velocity. Because we'll hit it like a ton of bricks and it will waste a lot of fuel if we hit it. So even though it might not seem like the most efficient way to do this, just trust me that this is got us right on the line of where we want to be. Because we're passing 150 meters per second and we're just coming up on 7,000 meters. So our next benchmark is 300 meters per second at 1250, which is about where we're going to start our gravity turn to, well actually at 10,000 more specifically, but we'll start it slowly, and here we go. Now we'll start it in earnest. So we're just coming up to 250 and we are just about to pass 1,200 meters. Excellent. 15,000, we want to be going not faster than 400, which means we actually need to slow down just a bit. Oh, turning this thing without the RCS is really challenging. It does not want to turn. But that's okay, because as you guys can see, we have lots of apoapsis under our belt now. Alright, and we are discharged that lower stage. Our apoapsis is currently at 3,500 kilometers, which is pretty good. Now, it's a $30,000 lift system, so it's not as cost-effective as I would like. Here comes our weather report. Keep. We'll get rid of those later. Actually, there's no reason not to send that data now. Now that I think about it. Review data, transmit. Okay, we need to do a bit more of a gravity turn here. Alright, there goes our... Alright, we're coming down to the wire here. And kill it. Okay, let's grab that barometer. Barometer, come here, bud. Review barometer data. And transmit. And that should finish our weather report. Okay. And still leave us with lots of battery power, because we got a very limited number of batteries on here. Perfect. That takes care of the weather report. They're happy with us now. Kerbal Weather Station Incorporated is pleased. Okay, so we'll just start our burn very slowly here, because we don't want to add too much to our apoapsis. Maybe a couple more meters, but nothing too serious. And we'll start throttling a little harder here. So we want to balance off how fast we are approaching our apoapsis. Okay, looking good. We've still got lots of fuel left in the engines, although not a vastly quantity, but enough. Okay, just a little further. And in a few seconds we are going to punch it. Although we got to keep that apoapsis from rising. We do not want it to go too much higher than it already is. But we also don't want to miss our apoapsis, because we don't want to push it to a stupid elevation. Okay, here comes. Here it comes. Okay, almost there. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Let's give it a few seconds, because we don't want to go... Yeah, so we want to get a little closer to the apoapsis before we do this. 72.5. 42 seconds to apoapsis. Let's do our final little bit of burn. $7, 68, 69, a little further. Whoop. We are right on top of that apoapsis right now, so There we go. Nice circularized orbit. And a tiny, tiny bit of fuel left in the tanks. 31 tons. I would call that a reasonably efficient... Now, are we high enough to do our test, or do we need to go just a little higher? We are in all conditions are met for the test. So we need to tell it that this has been delivered. This has been decoupled. And fire those. And hey, they've just deorbited us. Beautiful. That was our test. Now, I'm pretty much 100% certain I couldn't bring any of this home, but I wonder if it might be worth having a heat shield on this little bundle up here. I wonder how much it's worth and whether it would be worth trying to save a chunk of this ship or not. Honestly, with how tight the mass is on this design, I think it's not worth it. It comes out with us being 20,000 ahead, so I think it was 20,000, because this thing costs 30,000 to launch. We'll just finish deorbiting this thing. Give it a... Nope. Whoop. Not keeping it in orbit. We want to drop her down. In fact, let's just flip it around. Fire the engines and make sure we've got an impact trajectory. Because we don't want this thing getting in our way or causing us trouble. Now, the one thing about this is if I can design a moon... I wonder if this is powerful enough to get me to the moon. With a smaller... Obviously, with a much smaller payload. I mean, that's 10 tons. That is a lot. Okay, there we go. That's an impact trajectory, so this thing will crash itself quite cheerfully. In fact, so cheerfully, I think we can actually watch it crash. Because I think it's going to come down really fast. And we can glory and look at the beautiful cities covering Kerbal and see how much of a spin we can give this thing as we come down. Because explosions are always fun, right? Who can argue with explosions? I certainly can't. I like it. I really like the look of the planet with all these big urban centers on it. All we need now is actual buildings and stuff on Kerbal so that if we land in the wrong place, we have real problems. Like landing accidentally in a major urban center and damaging stuff. Here we go. Party time! Oh, lost a fuel tank first. You know, it's interesting. Oh, yeah. It occurs to me, those engines have actually survived the reentry. I wonder if my old design might actually work with the LVT-30s. Because did I ever try with the to do reentry with the LVT-30s? I can't remember. I really can't remember. May have to try that again off camera and see. Which will just mean throwing a couple parachutes on this thing and hoping that it'll still be able to get into orbit. But the important thing is we definitely came out of that with a profit. We're at 138,000. We've completed a Separatron. We've created a medium payload. And we did a weather survey. So, that was a flash in the pan of an episode because I did some of the work off camera. It needed to be done. So we've got 2 medium payload requests. We've got a Rockomax brand decoupler, flight over Kerbal. Okay, that's going to be a fun one. That's going to need a special rocket. I'll have to think about how to do that one. That's 21,000 to do the job, though. That's... I may actually be able to do that on my way to orbit. That's a funny idea. That could actually increase the value. Because, yeah, it was, oh yeah, 59 to 63,000. So I'm getting about a $30,000 profit from one flight, which is pretty darn good if you ask me. Orbital EVA. Oh, cool. $65,000 or $62,000 for an orbital EVA. I should save that for a trip to the moon, which could be cool. We're also coming up on the point. I can't do these. I don't want to do any of this docking stuff until I'm ready to put an actual fuel system up in orbit, because it'll help cover the cost of putting a refueling station in orbit around Kerbin. Which is coming soon. Anyways, I don't want to do that until I've got the big orange pill tank anyways. Well, let's see which decoupler this is, because that's one. I got 72 days to do it, and I'm probably going to do it on my next cache flight. So let's see which one they want us to test. Rockomax brand is probably the one for the big orange tanks. Yeah, there it is right there. The big decoupler. So I mean, if we want to test it in flight over Kerbin, well, where did they want us to test it? What elevation? 23,000. We made it that high with this. Let's see, it's 0.2, this way is 0.05. Might just work if I slapped it in here and called it a what the heck oversized decoupler, but it might just do the job. I might be able to actually do that. 90 meters per second to 200. Oh, no, it won't work because I'm going to be going way faster than that. No. Okay, so it's going to require a different design to pull that off. One more undo. There we go. No, that's going to require a special flight. Maybe could just slap it on a weather test, a weather sampling flight. I'll have to think on that. The exact how we're going to do that remains to be seen. I'll have to think on that, but now I've got the contract, so I will have to figure out how to do it. I mean, I could just design a silly little ship to carry it up that high. Apparently, I don't get to do weather surveys anymore, or at least there's not one available at the moment. This poor old illuminator, I've still got a fair chunk of time before anything goes horribly wrong with that one, and I should be able to get the science for it soon. So let's have a look at our science anyways, because science is sort of a priority again. There's the illuminator. If I can get that, then I can actually test it properly. So we've got 3 techs left in this tier. So in my archives, where are we at? We've done all of our science around Kerbin. That's interesting. Why is the stuff... Oh. Wait, hold on. Is there stuff showing up here that shouldn't actually be showing up? I'm not sure. Temperature scan from Kerbin's surface. Have I not done the high over Kerbin temperature scan, or is it just not available? I can't even remember now. But that's interesting. Maybe it slipped through the cracks. Oh, you know what it is? I think Flower Child added the atmospheric scans to basically limit... Does it feel like we're missing something? Well, flying... Okay, no. Well, flying at Kerbin, upper atmosphere, and space. Now, those are the 3. And then this one is one that has been added. I think he added that one so that, how shall we say, it's basically to create a lower limit on where we could get a lower limit on where we could get the flying at Kerbin science. We actually have to go up to a certain elevation before we can get it now. Okay. So gravity scans, I'm pretty sure that's all of them. All the biomes. Crew reports, the only one we don't have is the Badlands. They are, of course, crew report above Kerbin's water, from Kerbin's... Oh, that would be sitting in the ocean, sitting on the surface. Okay, those are not meaningful. The only thing we don't have is the high space one, which doesn't do us any good right now anyways. And the 4 goo experiments from local Kerbal. And then EVA reports. Likely the first EVA report would be up in orbiting Kerbal. I don't think they're going to want us to get out of the ship while we're flying up, because that would be a good way to get a Kerbal killed. Okay, I see surface reports. So really, I think with the tech we've currently got, we've exhausted the science at Kerbal, which means we need to figure out how to design a lunar shuttle, a lunar transit rocket. We need to go to the moon. But that's going to be a job for the next episode. I may have to adjust this design quite a bit. I've got some thoughts on how I would redesign it to make it work better as a lunar shuttle. But that's a job for another day. For now, thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.